and you want to talk to Optimus Prime,
I know, right?
Or Bumblebee, right? So we could essentially create this type of role in the application, and you can talk to them, right? As if it's like a real Bumblebee or the Optimus Prime talking to you.
Hey everyone, it's Christopher again. Today we are in another episode of BytePlus SoundByte. And I remember the last episode, I invited John to the show, and we talked about some kind of reality check, right? Like the AI adoption rate and how people are actually using AI. Is it true that we're using so much AI? So today we're going to talk about how consumer AI is not the same as enterprise AI. So I think in recent news, a PwC survey finds that 56% of CEOs see no significant cost or revenue gains from AI so far, with many organizations struggling to scale beyond pilots. So I feel that, let's zoom in on something that often gets blurred in AI conversations, right? Like AI consumer AI, enterprise AI, they are not the same thing. And on the consumer side, AI increasingly shows up as a service or even as a companion app, and it's something that you dip into, rely on, and expect to just work like this, right? Often in the background or on the mobile. And but the usage pattern creates a very different expectation compared to enterprise environments. So different tolerance for failure, different ideas of value, and different systems demands altogether. So when we talk about AI as a service, what actually makes it work for consumers? And more importantly, what should enterprises be paying attention to instead of assuming that the same model will translate directly?
Right. That's a very good question in terms of the differences between the consumer and also the enterprise AI. And certainly they are very different in the way that consumer AI is something like, a normal users, maybe at home or maybe at work, they are trying out to answer some questions. They want to actually restructure the way the report is, right? So these are pretty much things like consumer AI, or even things like, if I'm actually going to release something very nice, fancy in the social media website, I will generate image or video anywhere, which model I like it, I'll use it, and which model is fast, I'll use it. But enterprise AI is very different from consumer. But I want to say this here is that the enterprise AI solution can also be something that's correlate to the consumer. Why? Because when you actually go into the enterprise AI, essentially you are building a platform, you're building something to really enable the end customers as well, right? So most of the time for enterprise AI, we're building a big block, right? This block could be a workflow, of any industries that we need to specify, right? For example, you talk about media industry, we need to actually create some workflow to generate a whole series of episodes, whole series of short drama. So by doing this type of enterprise AI, you need to ensure that all these frameworks, all this brainstorming is already been implemented. Then you will be able to support this business. However, one thing about consumer AI is that even for myself, I use AI almost daily. If I think that this AI solutions, whether it's LLM, or Gen AI or the voice AI, is something that is not reliable because the speed of generation of content is not fast enough. Generally, I will just switch different providers. There's no stickiness in terms of using AI solutions, right? So this is a part where most of the consumers AI are actually looking into agnostic. So which provider gives the best price, which provider gives the faster or more reliable generation of time, then we will go ahead to. But otherwise, the enterprise AI will ensure that they build a very robust system to be able to support B2B customers. Yeah.
Yes, speaking of which, time, right? When we're using AI as a consumer, I think a lot of consumers, they don't have any patience, right? So when they start using a model, they would be like, okay, is this going to work for me? Like, just like that. And I think one of the services that we look at in terms of like getting that sort of instantaneous response, right, would be companion apps. And, this is something that we are even seeing with the big boys, right? Like Apple is going to like recreate their Siri for iOS 27 next year. And one of the biggest change would be the integration of the chat assistant. And I think we are even seeing that adoption with some of our enterprise customers, for example, Khui AI in Thailand, right? So
Right.
maybe we could talk a little bit about how our models work for Khui AI and how is it possible for them to scale so fast and, attract so many users.
Right, that's a good question in terms of how Khui AI has grown. It was also last year we met up with customers and they started this business. It's just a few people that is, they founded this Khui AI. The intention here was to build an AI companion, right? And the main reason why they actually started this business is because they did a research, in the regions, maybe in China, maybe in other regions, that they see there's this demand that people are looking for, like, partners to talk to. And it can be any type of topic, like maybe a tutor. If you want to look for a master class or maybe a tutor online or coaching, you could essentially talk to this AI virtual humans via Khui AI application, right?
Yeah.
And how do we actually started to build this technology? Because we have the use case already. So how do we do that is that we actually use the BytePlus open source DeepSeek to connect the LLM into the front end of the Khui AI application. And from there, they actually built many different, the roles. So roles like the tutor, the coaching, and this role is actually using system prompt to prompt, right? So for example, some, customers or some consumers or users, they are like a fan of Transformer, right? And you want to talk to Optimus Prime,
I know,
right?
right?
Or Bumblebee, right? So we could essentially create this type of role in the application, and you can talk to them, right? As if it's like a real Bumblebee or the Optimus Prime talking to you. So this is a demand we've seen in the region, and because of this, half a year or 1 year from now, they have grown to like maybe 2 or 3 million users, and the daily active users, from what I know, was about 300K. That's a very huge sum of the users' adoption of this type of AI companion.
Yeah, and I see this adoption just going to accelerate even more. Like even I myself, I'm already using voice, so I'm not actually typing in prompts anymore. And I think when we move on to how enterprises are transforming as a whole company, right? We also have another case study that we can share, which is CP Group from Thailand, because we're seeing that how consumer AI is different from enterprise AI. But even for enterprise AI, they need to transform as a whole company first before they can even move on to say how they want to influence the public, their consumer users of this is going to be the future.
Right. Yeah. So for CP Group, it was also a very interesting journey when we actually collaborated with them since last year. So the first, MOU that we actually signed with them was the CP land under CP Group, because CP Group is really huge. There are about 10, 11 BUs under them. And the CP land actually has a lot of this property, residential, that they need to create some short clips and images to create awareness, so people will actually look up into their portal, to entice them and to make sure that they can, buy property or something like this. So we actually built some POC with them to create some omni-human in the video, and also cutting of scenes of different properties.
I
Right?
see.
That's what we actually did with CP Lam. But the whole of this strategic partnership is starting from a very top-down approach, which is the CP Group, as you mentioned earlier on. So the idea here is that because CP Group also knows that they need to quickly adopt AI solutions, because if you don't adopt it, you'll be behind a lot of. And what we do here was that they want to transform all their BUs into AI as a service, right? Any BUs, maybe even in true corporations, in like CPF, in automobile, educations, every EUs will eventually goes into the AI transformation, right? However, talking is easy, but the execution is always the part where we need to emphasize a lot, because AI, as mentioned, is growing so rapidly. Every quarter or even sometimes every month, there's a new version that's coming out. So we have been working very closely with them to ensure that they start to adopt this within their internal team, right? Because only when you start to do it internally, you are very comfortable with the solutions, then you will be able to use this in external.
Yes, I think that is the common complaint from enterprises, right? They are investing heavily, but they are not yet capitalizing. So maybe we can talk about how do we walk on this journey together with our customer, like hand in hand, helping them understand how to capitalize it instead of just giving them something to use. You know, we are also customizing and therefore educating all these enterprises of how to capitalize on their investments.
Right. I would think that ROI is always one of the key thing that every customers would want to do it because it's
Yes.
like a win-win situation, right?
Yeah.
It's not gonna be like a buy and sell. You sell and buy, right? So it's always when you talk about collaboration, partnership, it will be a long-term plan, strategic partnership. So what BytePlus do here is that we want to work with partners to be able to actually first of all, when they have any use case solution, we will identify what's the target audience, right? For example, I talk about CP Group. There's one BU and it's called True Corporation, right? The True Corporation has a True ID, True Vision. They have like True a lot of different content. It's a super application where the users will be able to actually log into True ID and watch short drama. They will be able to actually use the interacting with each other within the application. When you start to use the AI solutions, we will understand the requirement from the customers and we have to cater the right resources because it's not going to be a one-day thing. We have to think far away for 1 year or 2 years plan. So if there's a necessary that we need to build or we need to, from BytePlus point of view, we need to have bigger GPU clusters to provide to our customers.
Right.
We will pre-plan it. And once we plan it, this thing will be something that we can help the customers to sustain the business. Yeah. So another part here is that because in order for them to monetize or capitalize this thing, we always educate our customers, our partners that use it internally first and let us know any feedbacks, right? And then after that, you think about selling this to your end customers. For example, the True ID application that is a short drama, but sometimes a short drama can be created from the KOL or the influencer. But what if you actually put things like Seed Dream and Seed Dance, a small button or feature within your application, right?
I see.
So the influencer and the KOL, they could essentially use this to create a very high quality content without them having to do a live streaming, right? So these are the things that it might be a small portion of the whole short drama, but it really helps the end customers to build content easily with a high quality content. And by doing this, it's actually a two-way, ROI because first of all, the True will be actually getting the BytePlus Gen AI from our site API, and then they are also trying to sell this as a token or as a user subscription to the end customer.
That's interesting. I think this really answers how usage patterns, expectations, and infrastructure readiness, they really differ from different worlds and different industries, right? Well, that concludes our episode today for how enterprise AI is different and not the same as consumer AI. And that's John Lim, our solutions architect from BytePlus, and I'm Christopher Khui. See you in the next episode.
Thank you.